Hello, I am live. If you open a new window and go to my channel, it should show what.
I've got your new one, but I just wonder how we can direct people to this one, to the new one.
Get the link.
Because the chat is now closed on the other one, and I can't.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm just trying to figure out how what to do. Because I won't know to look. I'm gonna go to your previous one and see if.
Put it in the comments on the previous.
That's it.
On April. Yeah. There should be a little April 4th thing now.
Yeah.
Oh, one person is here. Hello. We've been having technical difficulties getting my weekly virtual studio party going.
I don't see an option to comment on it, unfortunately.
And there are 3 people present. Hi, Debbie, you found me. Yay. We've been having technical snafus, and we're worried the people who were on the original stream that failed won't even be able to find this one. So, Cal, can you turn your laptop around so I can see it closer to me so that I can...
So that's the old one that's open right now?
Yeah, just stop it. Just one moment, please, everybody. Okay. No ability to comment, eh? Every week there's got to be some issue, eh, Debbie? I think what I've noticed is that it was so much simpler doing a live stream before this pandemic hit. Well, I don't know why.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can figure out why. Hi, Joanne. I'm so glad you found us. We had to cancel the original link screen. Can you go onto Facebook and change the link there?
I'm trying. Yeah.
Great. And I should change it on my website. Okay. Yay, Joanne. Joanne, is this the first time you've made it here now? To the virtual studio party? I can't remember if you made it to an earlier one. Hi, Jane. Glad you found me. I hope more people think of going to the channel to find, because if you go to the channel, you see that I'm on live. Oh, good. Okay, Joanne. Sorry, I just can't remember. So much has happened between now and last week that it's gone. Oh, well, it's going to be a smaller crew than normal, obviously. Uh, but that's fine. Whoever can make it, and we'll have the replay. Yeah, are most of you feeling like a lot has happened in the last week? I know for Debbie, I hope Debbie won't mind my sharing this, but she's now, I think, a first-time grandmother, a booby. Is that right, Debbie? So, Muzzle tov, congratulations. Cheers. But yeah, just in general, I mean, even just, figuring out a grocery order seems to take forever. It makes me think of how things just used to take longer to happen. You remember those days when every shipping took a long time. Mail didn't take a long time, but shipping did, if you placed an order and so on. Or I was just reading, one of the politicians was suggesting, because stores are having trouble uh, having enough time to do proper sanitizing of the stores that are open. And so one of the politicians was saying we should bring back Sunday closures as a way for them to be able to get the sanitizing done. And I thought, wow, what a throwback that would be. Yeah, the times we're living in. Keep getting alerts. Yeah. Just reading through the chat here. Yeah, it's really true. I am recording it for future reference for others to watch, Jane. Hopefully some people will find me. One person who was there right at the beginning was, I don't even recognize her name, which I hope is not insulting to her if she sees this. But she might be someone I should know. But that's again. But she was so excited to be doing it and so excited about the offering, and then it just sort of blew up. Hi, Gunta. So glad you could make it. Glad you were able to send a chat. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So Debbie, you must be a happy booby, except for the fact that you can't hold your new grandchild. What a drag, but a healthy grandchild, and then you will be able to hold that baby. So I'm just going to set this up. Tilt that. Back it up. There we go. Okay. So these virtual studio parties are not me doing a proper tutorial with everything all pre-done and figured out and all of that. It's me in a part of my studio, which is to say most of our house is a studio except for the kitchen, bathroom, and master bedroom. So this is the part of the studio that has some clear table space, and that's why I'm using it. And so I have a starting point that I want to begin with, and I'll start with that starting point, and I'll explain things that I'm doing as I go along, and some of the things I'm using, and so on. I am going to include a little bit of Jelly Plate today. I'm going to do a bit of mixed media. There's going to be some Jelly Plate. There's going to be some image transfer. So yeah. And for anybody who doesn't know, I've got a Jelly course starting this Thursday. So if you're not already signed up and are interested in Jelly Plate, it's filling up. So yeah, register soon. I don't know what the latest numbers are, but it was getting close to full. So last week, where's what I was working on last week? Here we are. Last week, I was working on this, and I've done some more work on it since then. And this is a scratchboard drawing, and I'll go closer in. Look how lacy it's getting I just love how lacy it's getting. And so I had hoped last night to finish this section here, but I didn't have a chance to. I mean, I know, like, how crazy is it that during this lockdown I'm too busy to finish that? It makes no sense, but it's the truth.
Gunta says, "Wow, it's beautiful."
Oh, thank you, Gunta. So what I've done, I scanned this in. Some of you may have a multi-function printer that has a scanner on it, which allows you to scan things in if you want to work with them digitally at all. Can also be can be a great way to get a detail or something if you can scan in resolution. Anyway, so what I did is I scanned it in at very high resolution, 2400 pixels per inch, if you can believe it. And I've created some, like, look how much bigger that is than the fraction of that it came from. I do love that kind of pow that you get from changing the scale dramatically. But I also made some smaller ones, still much bigger than the original, as you can see. And then I made one that's got smaller crops as well. And when I say I made them, I put them together in Photoshop and sized them and cropped them. And then I printed them on a kind of film. It looks a lot like overhead transparency film or acetate, but it's a specially coated transfer film. And that's it right there. Ink Aid transfer film. And their website is inkaid1, the numeral 1.com. It's the same as the regular transfer film made by a company called DASS, D-A-S-S, D as in doorknob. And I'll show you how I make transfers using that film.
A couple of things from the chat. Valerie Fitzpatrick has joined us and thanks you for sharing your work and your process. Great to see you. Isadora Martinez is here.
Oh, hi, Isadora. How lovely.
And Jane asks, wow, what kind of paper is that scanned on? But I think you've addressed that.
Yep.
Is the enlargement a photocopy? Irene wonders.
It's not a photocopy. It's an inkjet print. So I have to print onto this transfer film. You need an inkjet printer that has a straight through paper path. So in my case, I have an art printer. I didn't even use the art printer for this. I just used an office multifunction. Epson makes a line called Workforce. Their Workforce series. It's multifunction printers that are inkjet, and specifically the ones that have the rear paper feed. So I can put the film in the back, excuse me, and then it comes through and spits out the front. You'll notice in that it doesn't have to do any of these things through rollers. And that's really important because otherwise it'll jam. So it's important to have that kind of paper path. Some other people have a different kind of straight through paper path, but that's the kind this has. And so it is, it's not a toner base. It doesn't work with a laser printer. Or for example, Hewlett Packard calls their laser printers laser jets. Don't be confused by the word jet. If it's got the word laser in it, it uses toner, and this is not compatible with toner. Okay, it would melt or could melt inside the heat of a laser printer or a toner-based copier. So that's what these are, and I had this feeling that I wanted to do some jelly printed shapes in orange on brown craft kind of paper. So I'm going to put my transfer film aside just for the moment. And get out a jelly plate and get my jelly plate kind of warmed up, you know. Cal's rubbing his hands together. I sort of want to warm up with a 6x6. I need to warm up too. So, you know, the plate needs to warm up and I need to warm up. So I'm going to start by playing with my 6x6, which is one of my favorite plates. It's a little showing the signs of use. Oh, Irene, I'm so glad that you found. No, we're not frozen right now, Irene. So hopefully Cal's telling you that. Okay, I'm going to get a white piece of paper here. Just put it underneath. It's really important to warm up in your studio. Do any of you have ways that you kind of get yourself started in the studio? Maybe things that feel, maybe you tidy, maybe you wash things that you didn't wash the night before, or prep surfaces. Please share in the chat what you do.
Debbie wonders, where did you get the silicone table cover?
Oh, so this is just a silicone baking sheet that I bought. I'm not certain where this one came from. It's matte finish on one side and glossy finish on the other side. So I probably bought it on a sale in a kitchenwares department or something. I often buy them at Canadian Tire because Canadian Tire, I don't know that this one comes from there, but Canadian Tire has throughout the year sales on their silicone bakeware, and it's red in color as well. And that includes everything, you know, their bunt pan, their muffin tins, muffin pans, I guess you call them. All right. Now, I was really bad last time. I left my roller face down on a piece of paper with a bit of paint on it. So I've been soaking it. And I have high hopes that I'll be able to get the paper residue off. I need to tilt this slightly up.
Slightly up.
Yeah, just slightly. Yeah, there we go. Now I don't have to slouch as much. Okay, that's better.
Jane says, every time I'm straightening up in the studio, I end up getting sidetracked onto something else and make it even messier. Irene is back live, and Joanne says, I tidy, set everything out, then do some practice of whatever it is I'm doing.
That sounds like a great warm-up strategy. Jane, that just sounds like abundant creativity. Maybe a little bit of ADD. But yeah, it sounds good. I mean, something's got you caught up in the enthusiasm for it, which is awesome. I get sidetracked all the time. Just ask Cal. That's how I ended up being a multidisciplinary artist. It's too much fun. You know, we all have different natures, and some people are naturally, you know, much more singular in their focus, capable of being singular in their focus too. But, you know, we need both kinds in the world. Homemade cocoa. Very nice. Okay.
Philippa Haidu.
Oh, hi, Philippa, you made it. Excellent. You found me.
And she's found the chat too. So.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm so glad. Okay. So I found out, actually because of Irene, well, no, before Irene, I found out that my usual supplier, this is my deli paper, and there's quite a lot in here, but you can go through it quite quickly if you're really active with your printing. And my usual supplier, for some reason, is no longer at the present moment offering white or just plain. The only thing they're offering is 2 colors of checkerboard deli paper, which is not exactly versatile. And I used to buy, they used to be great because they offered it in 100 count quantities, 250 count, and 1,000. And I started buying it by the 1,000. Thank goodness, because that's why I have this much left. But the pricing was good. And now, as Irene discovered, she could get 50 sheets. That's it. That's all that the company that offers the white unwaxed deli paper. Deli as in delicatessen, just in case anybody missed last week's or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. 50 count, and it costs a lot more per sheet. So I'm disappointed and hope that it's a temporary situation.
Irene says, your studio parties are helping me find my supplies, a few at a time. I know I have more stuff. I will find it as I make art and tidy.
That's right. Yeah. That's the thing, right? I was excavating a bit of the bedroom a couple of days ago. That was a scary thing. I'm a little frightened of excavating my studio, frankly, because I had so many shows in a row, which is a great blessing, obviously, but yeah, just insane in terms of the and no sooner done one show than I had to prepare for another show, and never got the chance to tidy. Fun, kind of a nice idea for warming up. So I'm just cutting a little mask, a giant comma or apostrophe, and maybe I'll make one other shape.
Irene asks, can the deli paper be waxed, or is it important that it's unwaxed?
It's kind of important that it's unwaxed because the paint acrylic paint is water-based, and it will be resisted by the wax. Just like you wouldn't want to do an acrylic painting on wax paper, right? So similarly, you don't want to print with acrylic. Now, if you do your jelly printing with oil-based printing ink or oil paint, which is not my expertise, but I know it's doable, then you could use waxed. So I should give that clarification.
Philippa says, I loved watching the scratchboard demo. Such a beautiful design.
Oh, thank you. Yes, so I'll be working with stuff related to the scratchboard, Philippa. You may have missed earlier, I was showing the image transfers I'm going to be doing based on that drawing, which I'm still working on. It's going to take a while. Okay. So
that's a 6-inch jelly plate, Kim?
A 6-inch square. And where's my... Quite sure where I put my baby wipes, so I'll get another one. And as mentioned, I'm just getting warmed up. I have to warm myself up, and then I will warm up the plate I want to use. What do I want to do? I think I want to do this. Okay. Bit wet.
Jane asks, can't you jelly print on watercolor paper?
Yep. So when I bought deli paper in large quantities, Jane, deli paper was costing me 10 cents a sheet. So absolutely, you can paint on Japanese paper. You can paint on watercolor paper. Print on watercolor paper. The results will be best if it's a smooth finish watercolor paper, also known as hot press, or in the case of Canson XL watercolor paper, one side is smoother than the other of the sheets. You buy that in pads, and it's a value priced kind of paper.
Mira has joined us and she says, hello, Kim. I'm surrounded with all kinds of stuff, just like you, ready to learn something new.
Excellent.
I will treasure my deli paper for now.
Yes, treasure your deli paper. Seriously, who knew it was going to become this precious commodity, right? Now, I've laid my mask down on my first color, and I'm going to take a print using the deli paper. Deli paper is great for printing when you've got a mask because it's thin enough. It's thicker than or stronger than tissue paper, but has other things in common with it. And you can really get it to go around masks in really nice detail. Sorry, you probably can't see that very well. There, now you can see it better. Right? So I've taken that. Oh, and I've forgotten, of course, these are absorbent now, so they're not that useful. So I'm going to have to do this again. I've made my masks out of premium bond paper and 32-pound bond, and it's a nice paper to work with. See, it's only got a moderate amount of curl, even though it's got paint on it. But it is absorbent the first time you use it, so it's removed all the paint. So I'm going to put another coat.
So Irene asks, so the Liquid Text Basics paints work and you don't add any golden open medium to this paint?
Oh, I do. Not right now, but depending on what you're doing, I definitely do sometimes. So there we go. You can, for those of you who have retarder, you can use retarder instead, but I prefer golden open medium because it is an actual acrylic medium, not an additive. So it doesn't weaken the paint at all. But of course, you can use additives to the limits that they tell you on the packaging.
Jane asks, can you print more than once of the same design?
Well, yes, it depends on the paint load and whether it's still wet. But it just speaking broadly, absolutely. It will look different. One will be the ghost print. Okay, so there's my first print. Now, if I want to do another one, sorry, you want to hold it up?
Yeah, I can hold it up.
That's great.
While you move on to the...
Now I'll do another print. Oh, actually, I don't want to do that. No, but I could do another print. You see, some paint came off. But I just remembered what I actually want to do with this print. And what I want to do is take the mask off now. Very carefully using this blade so I'm not poking the plate. And now, because this is a second layer of paint, it should be non-absorbent the next time. There we go. So I'll show you what the plate looks like. I'm going to let this dry. This is why I did not add retarder or golden open medium, because I actually want this coat to dry, and it's a nice thin coat, so it doesn't take very long. Just getting the paint residue off of my roller. All right, and I think I'll just go for it. This is actually when I'll add a little retarder because I don't want, or open medium, because I don't want this coat to dry. The success of it to lift my previous coat depends on it not drying. I hope you heard that. Can everybody hear me okay?
Irene asks, does golden open medium come in larger quantities? I have the 8-ounce fluid ounce container with a nozzle tip.
Yes, so that's exactly what I have here. This is 8 ounces. I literally used 2 drops of it here. So you work your way through it very slowly, unless you're painting with it as well, in which case you might want more. I think the biggest oh no, no, I'm thinking of airbrush medium. No, I'm sorry. Open medium, it may come in a 16 ounce, but I believe it doesn't come in larger quantities. I could be mistaken, but I seem to recall having that conversation with Wael at Two Art Supplies.
Everyone says they can hear you very well. Valerie Ashton asks, would fluid acrylic work for top layer?
Yep. You can use fluid acrylics. You can use high viscosity acrylics. Liquitex Basics are like a medium viscosity in between. And okay, my first print was not so. Sorry, I had to stop talking because I had to make sure that I got this down before it dried. Now with the open medium, I shouldn't have been so paranoid, but I forgot that I had the open medium in it. So there's no counting for memory loss, right? Okay. Hold up a not exactly what I was hoping for. So see if I can get a pickup layer. There's lots of residue left on the plate. They'll try a firmer paper. See if that helps.
Irene says, this was the largest size I found at above ground recently. Jane says, interesting for background and use in collage.
Yes. Jelly printing is fantastic for making collage papers. I mean, quite brilliant. And there's so many techniques. And what are you looking for?
What white are you using?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm using titanium white. Just regular old titanium white. Oh, you can hold that up for them, maybe. That really looks beautiful. Let's see if I can get anything off the... so, Jane, this is my second print from the same original without adding anything. I'm going to see if I can get anything. I'm not positive because I did not add retarder to that, or open medium to that white layer, but
you were fast, so...
Yeah. Yeah, this corner is not going to come up at all because one of the things about the transparency or translucency of the deli paper is that it helps you read what's happening with your print. So I can tell there are parts that are not going to come up just by looking through the back of the paper, but what is coming up is quite lovely.
Jane says, okay, I'm hooked. I will have to get a jelly pad. And here I am trying to downsize my accoutrement.
Sorry, Jane. Sorry, not sorry. I gotta say, it's tremendous fun, you know. As I think most of you know, I do a lot of different processes in my art practice, and I enjoy so many of them in so many different ways. But this is one I turn to when I want play. That's definitely a hallmark of this process. And you know, the joy of accidents happening and discovery. It just happens quite quickly, and you get feedback quickly as a result.
Nancy Monette says, I'm completely new to jelly printing, so these online sessions have been a great introduction.
Oh, good. Good.
Irene says, I really love this print. Probably because of the contrast in value, purple and then white.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've got hints of the shapes in there that give it some architecture. Oh, there we go. So the blue has done a good job. There's still some residue, but it's done a good job of lifting most of the residue. And look at the result. It's like a Monet. You know how like Monet got started. I feel like the light is not shining on this adequately. There we go. Can you see that all right now? Yep. Hopefully. So, yeah. See, that's a beautiful thing. And that makes me think, okay, I'm going to go off-piste, as they say in cycling. I'm going to go off-road, off the trail. I don't know exactly what that means.
It's skiing, and it means off the...
Oh, right, yeah. Skiing. Off the trail. So I'm going to do that in my art way. If I can find my... There we are.
Philippa asks, does butcher paper work?
You're going to have to try it out and let me know. You know, butcher paper, depends on the butcher paper. Often there's a side that has a plastic coating and a side that doesn't. So print on the side that doesn't. That's like freezer paper. Freezer paper has a plastic coated side and one that isn't plastic coated. So you would want to do it on the non-plastic side. Okay. So I just think that's a beautiful ground. And that makes me want to draw on it. It just needs something alerting in the foreground on it. So I'm going to use something. Maybe I'll just use some bond paper. Actually, no, it'll be better to use something transparent. So I'm going to try something out here. I have, I could mix this, but I do buy black in Golden Open paints. In general, I tried them out and I wasn't keen on their colors or consistency, but you know, it can also just be a matter of what you're used to. And you might find, oh, maybe I'll put some barrier cream on now that I've been doing this for a while. But the black is great, and the black is handy for printing, for any kind of printmaking. You know, if you're doing lino block or whatever, if you don't want to have a whole bunch of printmaking inks and so on, then you can just get a tube of this golden open black. Or you can mix it with golden open medium with any of your acrylics in any of your colors.
Irene asks, is it because each color has different chemistry that some colors will lift certain other colors?
Possibly. Good question. The general wisdom is that colors with a lot of white in them lift better, or just white, you know, titanium white or unbleached titanium and so on. But also any colors that are mixed with high quantities of white, like that robin's egg blue that I just used, which is actually called light blue permanent. So, you know, this kind of color has a lot of white pre-mixed into it, which is what makes it so handy. I'm loving the fact that Basics has a whole lot of pre-mixed colors, not because I don't also love to mix custom colors, but sometimes I just want to create responses between colors. So I am going to brayer out some of this black paint here. It's going to be a much larger area apparently than
Can you talk about barrier cream for a minute? Gunta was asking.
Okay, barrier cream is like a cross between hand lotion, and if you've ever gotten white glue on your hands, you know how it coats your hands to create, and it effectively creates a second skin. So barrier cream is something in between that, because you know, white glue doesn't feel good to have on your hands. But it means that I don't have to wear gloves. And that's good because I'm a very tactile person, and it drives me crazy when I have gloves on in between me and the process or the thing that I'm doing. Just going to blunt my pencil here. Oh, actually, this is a 3H. That's pointless. Can you give me the HB with the eraser on the end? Thank you. That's going to be better. Okay. So yeah, I put that on. When you get more water on your fingertips because you're wiping with the baby wipes or your whatever you're doing, then you need to reapply to the parts where it's dissolved. I did have a student last summer in Halliburton who, I forget what her profession was, but I think it had to do with healthcare. So she introduced me to a pro-level, healthcare level barrier cream that doesn't wash off right away. So normal barrier cream, you just wash your hands, especially with soap and water, and it will wash all the paint off as well as the barrier cream. Okay, I'm going to put this on, and I won't be able to see anything because I've got black paint covering it up. I'll pull this closer to me. There we go. And so I'm just going to have to dream something up. Ha! Okay, so it turns it into like a carbon paper, for those of you who remember carbon copies. And there's the drawing, and you got a little bit of residue of the black, which is kind of fun. And I'll hold it up some more. Beautiful black lines. And the thing about this is it's It's like a process that Paul Klee used to use, but he used oil paint instead. So he has a lot of work where he's got some really crispy, fine, beautiful line work laid over top of painterly bases. That's the process he used. It's a form of printmaking because it's basically a transfer drawing, which is a form of print. So
Mira says, love it. Philip says, brilliant.
yeah, I think it's really like quite interesting. And so, now that I see it, I could decide that I want to do something different with it, or, and add to it. I might just add a little bit here. And I might add a little bit, just a faint echo. There. It's not quite. So the paint it's open paint, but it is drying just more slowly than normal paint. Normal paint, by this time, I'd get no transfer at all because it would be so dry. So it gives fainter lines. You see those lines there? Those lines are fainter because the paint is drier. So the fresher it is, the blacker the lines, if you're using black paint, obviously.
Val says, I've done both these techniques, but never thought to put them together.
Well, there you go. Mixing things together is what I like to do.
And Gunta asks, have you ever used the deli papers on a canvas of mixed media? I'm wondering how you would hide the added edges.
It's thin paper, so there'd be very little trouble in terms of hiding the edges. You just lay some paint that's not diluted over top of it, and really it will become a non-issue. You know how to make it a non-issue is to have some color or value cross over in a brush mark where the color and value ends up having more power than the edge. Okay, so if you have really thick paper, like watercolor paper that you're collaging on, then it's going to take a lot to push that edge back physically, but also visually. Whereas the deli paper is super thin. It's like same thing with the thin washi papers and tissue paper. Some people like to use tissue paper. This is stronger than tissue paper, though. It has a better wet strength. It does ripple up when it gets moist, but it's designed for wrapping food in, right, at a deli, so it has to be stronger. So there you go. There, well, I feel like I'm warmed up now. So I'm going to put the little plate away, and I'm going to cut some shapes. I have in my head some shapes. I don't know if I'll manage to make anything like the shapes I have in my head, but we'll see.
Tooth has joined us. She
Hey,
says,
Gwen.
finally here, sleepy day. Brought some watercolors to do color swatches. Hope all is well.
Oh, lovely. That's a nice idea. Very meditative, eh, Gwen? See, that's another thing that you could do as a warm up. We were talking about warm up strategies, Gwen, for getting in the studio, and that's a great one. And it can also just be what you do in the studio on a given day. We don't all have high energy days, and so don't demand high energy output from yourself if it's not in you,
Yeah, she says, don't feel super productive right now. Jane wonders how parchment paper would work.
Parchment paper. It depends on the parchment paper. Are you thinking of baking parchment paper? Because that has a silicone coating, so I wouldn't use that. But if you're thinking of parchment paper like calligraphers might use, I think it would definitely be worth trying. I think some people do use parchment paper for jelly printing. By the way, those of you who've seen my the name of my course, I purposely did not use the I that Jelly Arts uses on their. I know that that is the common way to refer to the process, jelly printing. Just like Kleenex is way more common a term than facial tissues. But I just thought for my course I would make it A, not their name, and B, more of a pun because it's closer to jelly as in the jelly you eat. Okay. There we go. Ooh, it's nice and sticky. All right. So I have this image in my head. I do sometimes get very complete visions of work and then start out aiming for that image. But other times it's purely process driven and I just have a starting point. In this case, I have an image for a stage anyway, and of this, what I have in my head. And that shooting for that is going to be my starting point. Do you want to email Francoise's sister and let her know that the link has changed? If she was coming?
Oh, okay.
Or is she coming to the collage?
Collage.
Okay, right. That's good.
I've asked people what they're doing to stay sane while cooped up.
That's great. Yes, I'd love to know. I've noticed signs that we are starting to adjust, that we're showing fewer signs of stress.
Are you referring to us as a society or you?
No,
and me?
us.
Yeah.
You and I. You and I in this room. Shapes are an interesting thing. You know, what makes a good shape? So I'm making, oh good, it shows up well against my top. Making little shapes like this. And like this. And like this. I'm cutting them out of the premium bond paper because it's sturdier than regular bond and it has a smoother, more dense surface than regular bond because it's premium, so they want it to be super, super duper.
Valerie says, art, yoga, running, meditating.
That sounds really good,
Gunta
Val.
says, I admire the way you two have found a way to keep teaching and being in touch with so many people during this time.
Oh, thank you, Gunta. It was actually one of the things that came up really early on was we were thinking about, you know, all the people we know who are used to having very rich, fulfilling, creative / social lives around art and how that would be unavailable to them. Or, you know, yeah, I mean, all the classes that they're used to going to, which would include some of you, and open studios and, you know, hanging out with people at whatever art center or art club, and or even going to galleries or whatever, and that just galvanized us. So So thank you, everybody, for galvanizing us. It's really given shape and purpose to this time for us, and to the point where I'm too busy to work on my drawing because I'm so busy updating my website and getting emails out, and it's kind of crazy, but in a really good way. Meaning and purpose, it's important, right? And community really helps with that.
So
More.
Joanne Darrow says, trying to keep a routine, regular exercise, meditation, getting dressed every day, creative practice, doing a hobby just for fun, keeping in touch with loved ones, and eating healthy.
Good for you, Joanne. That's so right. Routine. In fact, one of the harshest things is the loss of routine
And you would
during
know.
this time. And I'm terrible with routines to begin with, but even I felt the stress of the loss of routine, because what little scraps of routine I have were snatched away.
Mira says, music is the best in my case when we are stressed with Alfredo. Flamenco chill cambeo has good vibes for the soul.
That sounds fabulous, you guys.
Jane says, actually quite relaxing knowing when you go to sleep, there's nothing you have to rush to in the morning, and getting dressed at noon makes the day go faster.
I love it. That's the spirit. Love it.
And Gunta says, to be honest, I have become a sloth and am more slothful and fatter as each day comes along. Thankfully, I have a puppy who needs to get out on a regular basis.
That is
and needs
good.
To be trained.
That is good. The amount, well, first of all, stress eating. I was journaling this morning. That's one of my ways. But God forbid, I'm allergic to routine, so I don't do it every day, right? The fact that I noticed I wasn't stress eating in the same way. So that told me that I'm adjusting. With the amount of cooking and baking I see online, people on social media, they're like cooking and baking up a storm, which is awesome, but is also like, there's a point at which it's like, oh, and we're eating all this stuff too. Yeah. Oh, well. I think the thing is people will adjust and find different things to do. All right, I seem to have a lot of shapes here. I'll just do one more.
Irene says, thanks to the both of you, very inspiring to me. School teachers are starting to use technology on Monday, and this community is certainly helping me.
Oh, good. It's getting you used to the idea of being online, doing stuff, right, Irene? And communicating. Yeah. It part of it really is, I chose YouTube, as I've mentioned before, because it is so accessible. Although when it screws up, like happened earlier, that's a bit of a problem. But part of the barrier to adopting technology, like Zoom and this and so on, is just not having done it. And so it's great that you're here. Getting used to the idea of being one of the people who's using it, as opposed to knowing it exists, but only in a hypothetical sense. Okay, I'm going to lay these shapes out. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have this basis of an idea in my head. It already doesn't look like it. So, here we go.
Cal says, looking Matisse, Kim.
Yes, well, paper cuts, right? That always makes you think of the master.
Irene said essentially the same thing.
Yep. Okay. So just so you can see that I'm alternating using the mask and using the stencil that I've cut.
And that's a virgin plate, right? There's nothing down?
There's nothing down.
Okay.
I am being wild. I don't know. I have to work with this a little bit to sort of figure it out. I'm also changing the orientation that things are coming from.
Mira asks, is the paper Kim is using copier paper?
It is premium bond paper. It's like a premium version of what you would use. Okay. In a copier. You can use it either in laser or inkjet, this paper, because it's just paper. All right.
Jane asks, is there a trick to cleaning and maintaining the jelly pad?
On an ongoing basis, you'll see me spritzing it with water. Well, I don't know. I don't actually see my water spritz. And using baby wipes. But when you need to give it a better cleaning, I recommend using Murphy's oil soap, which is a very old-fashioned cleaner, and horsey people use it for their leather tack and so on, saddles. Not the spray kind. It has to be the proper old-fashioned kind that comes in a bottle or a jug. It's not spray. It's too viscous to spray. And it has I love the scent because it's it doesn't smell like a Glade fragrance bomb, as I think of them, which I always have a reaction to. It just has this lovely fresh scent. It's an amber colored liquid. And anyway, you buy, God, we bought a jug of it a few years ago, and we're still working our way through it. Using it a little more quickly now because I'm using it so much for art. It's great for brushes too, but you can soak your gel plate in a mixture of Murphy's oil soap and warm water. And the longer you soak it, the more it softens, and then you can clean off with a soft cloth or a sponge the paint residue.
Mira says, I'm having palpitations with the ideas coming to mind when I see what you're doing, Kim.
Oh, that's lovely, Mira. That makes me happy.
Philippa says, meditating, walking, reading, cooking for Engo and myself, conversation, talking to friends through Facebook and the phone, and of course Netflix at night also.
Yes.
Working on my stamp collection.
Oh, that's interesting.
Gunta says, I missed the name. Is it Murphy's Oil Soap?
Murphy's, yeah. Murphys. Probably with an apostrophe S rather than just plain S. I feel like I'm doing this in slow motion, but I also feel like that feels really good right now to be in slow motion because my life was in so much fast motion before this pandemic hit that I was desperately in need of slowing down.
Sarah asks, is it okay to use hand sanitizer to clean the jelly plate?
Yes, it is okay to use it. But even still, if you have trouble, that should soften it. The longer you leave it on, the more it will soften the paint. And you can do it in multiple stages. But one of the things that's nice about Murphy's is that with brushes too, or other painting tools, is that it conditions as it cleans, and that's a nice thing. All right, which of these do I want? Maybe this one. Okay, you can see I've got all my masks and stencils on there. So I just need to not mess it up, right?
Karen Fedu has joined. Hey there,
Hey,
you guys.
Karen.
Glad to see. Glad you got the video working.
Yeah. So glad you could make it, Karen. Okay. I'm going to go for some cadmium red light. I do love a bit of cadmium red light. So I'd love to know how do you enjoy watching me make it up as I go along? I hope, because this is the real deal, right? This is me in my studio, so hopefully that's interesting to you. I'm going to put a little bit of open medium on this so that it doesn't dry too quickly. I won't put it on every bit of paint, but I'll put it on some of them. 4 drops.
Karen says, yes, very inspiring. Philippa, yes, it is.
Good. Appreciate that. It can be very sensible to mix the open medium with the paint on your palette first, and then just use a plastic palette knife or a spatula, a silicone spatula, to put the paint onto your plate. But for those of us who are somewhat distracted or impatient, we just have to live with the consequences of our choices of not pre-mixing it and have to spend more time brayering to get the medium to mix properly with the paint, which it now has done. Oh, there's something very satisfying about how that looks right now. I'm going to take one of my previous prints and lay this onto that. Oops.
Karen says, now you're just making me work. I'm going to take you with me into the studio and start making space for printmaking.
Well then, my job here is done. Okay. Isn't that neat?
Nice. Yeah, that's great.
It's subtle, but the patterning over the violet is quite neat as well. If I'd wanted it to be a little less subtle, I would have needed to add a little bit of something opaque, like unbleached titanium or titanium white. And I need a microscopic camera to show you the veining known as dendrites that have happened in that paint. I'm just going to try it on this as well. Oh, I did it crooked. Oh, well. The old graphic designer in me is like, oh, it's crooked. But the artist in me is like, that's cool. Whatever. We'll adapt. So this is, so Jane, you were asking about pulling second prints from things without adding any more. This will be a second print without adding any more. Isn't that? I'll put a piece of white paper behind it so you can see it better. There we go. You can see it better.
Jane says, very cool.
Kind of interesting, eh?
How close to the camera can you take something and still be in focus? I wonder.
Let's see. Because yes, the dendrites are incredible. They're incredibly fine and even and overall. Let's look at this section here. Do you see that?
Yeah, you can.
That's a veining behavior that's referred to as dendrites, which is actually related to dendrites are a structure in the brain, related to neurons. But it's something I was playing with dendritic painting when I was preparing for my Heart Space show at Redhead last fall, not this fall. And I got a really big dendrite that I did on a white poured panel. But all my tests, I never got a beautiful, even dendrite like that. So I will have to remember that. Okay, I want to get some brown craft paper now. Now I have a couple of versions. One's not quite brown craft, but paper is part of the fun of printmaking, right? Or any kind of work on paper, collage, for example. So I got this craft paper. I'm thinking we got this at Walmart, right?
Yes.
So that's what it looks like. 50 sheets. It was affordable. It's a smooth cardstock. So I have an idea. The ideas are just going crazy right now. So I'm going to put this aside. I'm going to get as many plates as I possibly can dirty, because that's the way I roll. I'm going to get out my 5x7 plate.
Elaine Whitaker. Hi,
Elaine!
Been working here since you started, learning tons.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here, Elaine. Thanks for saying hi. Makes me so happy knowing you're there. Okay.
I've done a little explaining, but maybe you want to talk about, some people were asking why the dendrites happen. And I've said that.
Oh, it's fluid dynamics. It's physics. And it's has to do with the viscosity of the fluid, so the paint. And both surfaces have to be very smooth, and suction has to happen. And then that veining behavior occurs as a result. And there's a I'm no physicist, and I'm certainly no I know tiny little bits that are helpful to me about the fact I did research a little of the science behind it, but that's as far as I can go with it. Okay, I want to use that green again. Where is that gray green? Did I throw it back in? Yes, I threw it back here. Okay. I think that this gray green, but maybe with a bit of white. So I will finally get out the palette and custom mix some color, because I don't want this going too dull on the brown craft. You see, right now it's virtually matched by value, and I don't want it that close. I want it reasonably close, but not that close. Plus, I want the green to have, the green already has white content because it has gray in it, neutral gray. But I want it to have even more opacity if possible. So, little contrast, little opacity. I'm just going to add some titanium white. It looks so gray on the camera. But it is this wonderfully subtle green that just sings with the right colors. Okay. Think, Kim, think. Okay. It's hard sometimes. I'm going to do some torn paper. I want torn edges. Look at that nice edge. Love the irregularity. So it has the feeling of stripes, but not too regular. I'll make them different widths. This reminds me a little bit of the days when I used to paint a color diary that was on a horizontal watercolor sheet and vertical stripes of mixed colors.
Elaine has a question. She says, if you don't have a jelly plate, is there some other substrate you can work similarly to it?
You can certainly make monoprints from a wide variety of plastic materials. So if you have page protectors, you can tape it down to the to your surface, a smooth surface, and do things to that, and then lay the paper over top and burnish. You can use good, dense, glossy plastic bags, like Curry's art store bags, for example, and other art store bags. You can use plexiglass, mylar, or Duralar. So there are alternatives. They're not fully analogous to working with a jelly plate, because the jelly plate is flexible and it has give. And so that allows some things that the other things won't allow the same way. The plexiglass is obviously the least forgiving, but printmakers may like it because they're used to more rigid surfaces like metal plates and so on. So, yeah, so you can certainly play with monoprints, and very similar considerations around the paint and so on will apply. That might be too similar. Might try a skinnier one. Maybe not as skinny as the skinny one. It's tough fine-tuning something that's supposed to be this rough. Okay. All of this is to get a base down. At some point when you have a moment, Cal, if you could get zinc white from the basement, or from your studio, or wherever's convenient, that would be nice. Okay. I think I'm reasonably happy with the stripes as they are there. I'm just going to have to be, because I'm running it. Oh, right. I'm not going to use my tube. I'm going to use the paint I mixed up. And I might just put a little droplet of open medium in, just to increase the open time a little bit. The brown craft paper is going to be pretty thirsty, so it's going to suck in paint. I wonder if I have enough paint here. Well, I'm just going to, yeah, I don't have much surface area. So I just, you want to use a plastic palette knife or rubber spatula, because you don't want to harm the surface of your jelly plate, okay? Or plexiglass for that matter. If you're using that. Just getting off any still wet residue. Even though the roller shows the previous color I was working with, if I roller it off and it's not coming off anymore, then I don't have to really worry about it. Because the stripes go in this direction, I'm going to brayer in this direction. And that way I won't remove the masks I've laid down. Right? And I am going to do image transfer too, I promise. But first, I want to see. It's amazing how quickly I run out of workspace. Okay, let's put that there. Let's put that there. Awesome. Good. I think I put retarder in this thing. Okay.
Irene asks, who invented jelly plate printing, painters or printmakers? It's such a fun way to paint as well.
It is, because you can take a brush and paint and make a painterly painting on the plate, and then print it. And on a previous virtual party, I did some drawing right on the plate with paint pen. Okay, just trying to make sure those edges, it matters to me that those torn paper edges are printed nicely on this. So I'm making sure to burnish in the direction of the stripes so that I stand a chance of catching those edges. And now I'll peel it back and see what I've got. I can't say who, because it's related to the invention of monoprinting. So, which could certainly have been a printmaker, and it could have been a painter, or it could have been one of those crazy people. Oh, issue. I burnished too long, and this is thirsty paper. Oh, that's classic. Okay. So I've got an issue. I'm going to see if I can get some of these strips of paper off. No. Okay. So what I have is a collage. And this is how we discover things, okay? So, lesson to myself. I'm going to get a fresh piece of brown craft paper. See, it's the genuine studio process, right? This is how it happens. It's like, oh, okay, that didn't work. If I'd used Tyvek I think it was last virtual, or maybe it was 2 virtual studio parties ago, I cut my mask out of Tyvek. Tyvek is waterproof. It would have come off, no problem. But I burnished a long time, and the brown paper is thirsty, so it was working its way in and getting glued to the paper, even though it's still wet. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is counteract the thirstiness of this paper. Can you pass me that bottle of medium? Thank you. And I'm going to do that with some polymer medium. This happens to be semi-gloss. And I'm going to
Jane asks, does it make sense to use a roller on top as you burnish?
Yeah, well, that you can absolutely. In the previous case there, it just would have made the situation worse though, because it would have burnished it even better.
And Jane says, right, leave the paper on and go from there.
Exactly.
Plan B.
That's exactly right. And you know that I think that one of the benefits, sometimes with beginners, it's a benefit, and with being a veteran at studio practice, is that you just realize that that's what happens, and that it's an opportunity for invention and creativity. So you notice the paper rolled up because I put some moisture on it by putting medium on it. Medium, it's water-based polymer medium. So I'm just going to tape the paper down to help control it, because it's not going to be, and I will apply things differently. I just want to point out this beautiful red I've got left. I wonder if you can see it. Oh, when I lift it, you can see it. You see that? The lines? Yeah, you can actually see it better like this. Okay. Look at that. Those are just the lines from the, that makes me want to lift it up.
Irene wonders, what is Tyvek?
Tyvek is made by the DuPont company, and it is a polyester non-woven textile that is waterproof and breathable, and is used, covered in huge logos. If you go drive by any building site for a new housing development, they use it for house wrap, because it helps protect the house against wind. You know, old houses are draftier for a reason. That's one of the reasons. They don't have house wrap on them, and moisture, but it's breathable, so it allows moisture to escape. So it's not like wrapping the house in a garbage bag. Most FedEx has envelopes that are made of Tyvek, covered in their logos. They're not their letter size, but their next size up is Tyvek, because it's also
Really
very resistant to tears. Really resistant to tears. Excuse me. Just my usual chronic cough. Don't worry. It's a difficult time in the world to have chronic sinus issues and a chronic cough, I must say. But fortunately, Cal's been the one venturing out into the world, not me. Okay, so hopefully this will pick up those lines. We'll see, because they're just such lovely lines, and I'd like to be able to capture them. They're there. I don't know how well they'll show on camera, but they are there. You see that?
Yep.
There. You can see it better there, because the light's getting it. So it looks richer, because in real life, I can see the energy of the dull green. And since it's against a red, there's a vibration that's happening that's hard to capture on the webcam. So that is going to be a start to something. I don't know. There's a little dialogue between these two. Maybe I need to mix up some paint that's this color and bring some of that in. Let's see. Okay. So I've got some residue I need to clean up here. Where have I put my baby wipes? There they are. Oh, here's a baby wipe. Good. If you want to make your own baby wipes for this, you can use a nice rag, smooth, old cotton, flannel, non-flannel, but old, so that it needs to not leave threads and fluff. And you can have them in a mixture of water and a touch of glycerin. AKA glycerol, which you can get at drugstores and also at cake decorating supply places. Okay, I have a nice clean plate and I'm going to try that again. So this thing is drying out now. I can touch it. It's still a little buckled, so that tells me it's still a little bit, got a bit of moisture in it, but it's going to be less thirsty than it was before. And I think maybe I should I use that Tyvek? No, I can't tear Tyvek, so I'm going to use this again. But I will be quicker about it. And there's one way I can be quicker about it, which is like this. It was nice going in slow motion, but sometimes you gotta speed up. So this won't have as carefully thought through or whatever, but you know, we saw what happened with carefully thought through. Now, one of the things I think I'm going to do is get some deli paper. I'm going to mix up my paint. I need to mix some more. There it is.
Irene asks, are baby wipes the same as disinfecting wipes?
No.
They're less harsh, right?
Yeah, they're gentle.
Do they have soap in them?
They have a little something in them. Where's the, here you go. Yeah. Moist and gentle is what they put descriptive copy on the side saying. I'll put a little more white in than I did the first time because I'm looking at it thinking it's a little low contrast still, so I'll boost the contrast a little bit. Get a little open medium in there, a couple of drops, a couple of generous drops, and start mixing. Oh, I had a palette knife in here already. Well, now I have 2 palette knives with the green on it. Where's that white? Just a little bit more. Actually, I won't use the titanium for this additional batch. I'll use some unbleached titanium. So it's a very harmonious lightning. Yeah, creamy. Creamy. Okay, good. Oh, there's my plate. Now this time I'm going to do it differently. Am I? That's a good question. Maybe not. Sorry, I have to weigh all kinds of technical considerations. And if I knew I had all day working in my studio on this, I would do it differently than this maybe, but this is how I'll do it for now. One of the nice things about doing it rapidly, it has some drawbacks, but it has some pluses, which is that I've got some different sort of shapes than I might otherwise have, or than I would otherwise have. Okay, that's what it's going to be.
Both is going out for a walk now. Thanks so much for doing this. She'll watch this later.
Okay, thanks for coming.
Some papers for Collage Jam.
Great. I'm going to put some medium on this. for the same reason. This paper is thirsty. So I'm going to there we go. Have I tried this before? No, but on the theory that this is thirsty paper, I'm just going to remove most of what I've put on, except that the paper will absorb, whereas the plate will not. And when I clean off the roller and then roller onto the surface, it cleans off rather than adding. So that's good. Okay. Having done that, I'm now going to apply some, no, not this paint. The paint I painstakingly mixed. Honestly, got to watch me like a hawk. For my sake. Okay, let's see what happens. Now, what's everybody else up to? Those of you who are making stuff.
Elaine said she was multitasking.
Oh, are you?
Doing some bookkeeping, Elaine.
Right. So I'm going to do a first really light print using this deli paper. I'll show it to you later.
She's no way.
Who says no way?
Elaine.
About what?
But no way she's doing bookkeeping.
Well, let's see. It's Saturday. That's right. Tuesdays and Thursdays are normally her bookkeeping day, as I recall. Okay. Get that residue off the roller as soon as possible, or live to regret it. Okay, so I'm using the plate as a stamp now, which is another handy feature.
She says, good memory, Kim. Elaine.
Not too bad, eh? It's a miracle. Okay, let's see if I can get these off. Hallelujah. Well, don't say it too soon. Let's get these off. Okay, so I have a subtle thing going. First of all, the residue from this is just beautiful. So I'm going to be okay letting that dry, and then I'll do a pickup from that.
Valerie Fitzpatrick says, Kim, I really enjoy your playfulness while working and your apparent inability to get frustrated.
Am I just used to things happening out of my control? Yes, I am. There, do you see isn't that neat? I quite like that. So that was that first print that I barely burnished. I mean, I basically just made sure it was in contact, just barely. And I got a nice little print off of it that I can, geez, I don't know, that could actually be really nice in relationship to that red one that has the lines on it. Anyway, I'm just going to let that dry a little bit. It's still a bit wet because I put that open medium in it. And that's why I got a decent print off of it. And then I'm going to bring this plate back into use. Oh, I can get frustrated. It just takes more.
Cal says, that's hilarious, Val. If you'd have seen her as tech was acting up as we were trying to get going.
Well, because I don't like being foiled and getting it going. The process doesn't bother me at all. but sometimes it can. Just trying to think, like getting ready for the redhead show, what well, time pressure was a big thing, you know. Um, that was a big source of frustration because uh, I was after in the summertime after I taught in Halliburton for a couple of weeks in July, I was exhausted and needed a really long rest, and but knew I couldn't have a really long rest because I had to get a show made, and I think I counted it was 47 new pieces for the Redhead exhibition, some of which were quicker, some of which were slower, obviously, but that's a lot of new pieces to make. Even I'll admit that, eh, Elaine?
Just so heads up that you're at 10, coming up to 10 to 4. Yeah, we had.
Oh, am I? Oh, geez, I didn't know I was going late. I assumed we were like 10 to 3. Time flies, eh? All right, well, get on with it, Kim. I will do that. Find my CAD red light. Well, but I haven't even done the image transfer.
Might have to wait for the next one.
I might. But it seems a shame. Maybe I'll find something to transfer onto that I've worked on. Because I did, that was the very first thing I talked about. So it's like, not fulfilling my promise, which I hate. Okay, let's get some ink rolled out, paint rolled out.
Jane says, cool, enjoyed it all. We've got lots of us launched projects here.
Whoops. Excellent.
Thanks, Kim. See you guys on Monday for the collage party.
Okay, see you, Jane. So because I have the paper taped down, I am going to print it like a stamp. Put the plate on top of the paper, not the other way around. This is a time when I will use the roller. I'm not trying to, I don't have direct contact with the masks to register their edges. And I'm printing on stiff paper, so I can't, the paper won't conform in that way. So we'll see what happens. I'm leaving some of my masks behind. So some nice residue on this plate.
Gunta says she likes what this looks like from the brayer.
Yeah, the brayerings are beautiful. That's another way to make collage papers. Also good for art journaling or altered books. Okay, well, it kind of obscured the green, you know, and if I thought about it, I'd realize it would. So I'd probably do that green layer that I did earlier on top of this layer as opposed to the other way around. Because, of course, the brighter layer, even though it's not bright anymore because it's on top of a such a brown paper, it's dominant. But the tinted green does bring some light to it. So I think one thing that's abundantly clear when you see what I'm doing here, if for any of you for whom it might not have been clear previously, is that, you know, when you see a successful print that's actually in a show, framed and hung somewhere, whatever, that is the result of a process like this that will go on and on and on while I figured things out like that about the color, about the paper, about the masking material I'm using, and so on. You know, every single aspect is a factor. I'm going to let this dry because that's going to be an awesome layer on something. Really richly textured as well, which is very nice. I'll set that aside with the other plate I have drying. But I want to do one image transfer, and I had some brown envelopes. All right, I won't do it onto that. Why don't I do it onto this? I have this book in progress from, it's a little wonky, from a mark making workshop I had last, just after Labor Day weekend, I think, at Nielsen Park. And you see it's, you know, it's only begun really, but it might be fun for me to transfer onto this. One of the last events, in-person events I did before the isolation thing happened was for the Oshawa Art Association, and it was a mixed media book demo. So these are the transfer film sheets for any of you who weren't here at the beginning that I showed at the beginning. I scanned in my scratchboard drawing. It's still a work in progress, and I set them up in pages in Photoshop. You know, I like the boldness of this. And I printed it on this transfer film. And so I'm just going to try with some, I have some scissors here. If I can find, there we are. Thank you, dear. That's nice. It's so good to have a cow. Handy. Okay. So I'm just going to trim the film. To suit the size of the page. There are more accurate ways of doing it than this, but I'm going to do it roughly. And I'm going to start with this end page. So there's an emulsion side on this film. That's that side. And the glossy side doesn't have emulsion. I just want to use the 1 inch. And the reason I didn't have to stock up on Purell is because I was already stocked up because it's such an important ingredient for image transfers.
So you're putting it on the paper, Kim?
Yes, I know it's hard to see. There. Now you can. Oh, anyway, yes, I'm pumping it onto the paper. And I may have put too much, but I'm going to keep brushing it because the paper will absorb some of it.
And some will evaporate, right?
A little bit, but it's mostly about absorption because the gel form resists evaporation unless I apply some heat to it. That's the difference between the gel and just regular rubbing alcohol. Gel stabilizes it. So I'm smoothing it out now. making sure I've got a nice even coat. And now I'm going to lay the film down, emulsion side down. Where's my applicator?
Mondo?
Yeah. It had been in my palette. There are some over there by the other table. In the container. Thank you, dear. And I'm just going to burnish it with this applicator, which is actually meant for, it's an applicator designed for auto body filler. So if this transfer works, I think it's going to look awesome. So that's the film. Now I need to give it a minute or two. So I'll drink a little of my cocoa and wave at you. Oh, it's a little grayer out now, I notice. Just want to make sure it's all completely in contact, because where there's no contact, there's no transfer. This is a much more fun reason to have Purell in the house, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, Irene says, use Purell to make art and stay home.
Yeah, and stay home. Then you need Purell. Now I'm just going to check it. No. I'm going to have to. This may or may not work well. The paper is a little textured, and it may have sucked in the Purell more quickly than the Purell was able to dissolve the emulsion to make the transfer. But is Valerie still here? Mm-hmm. So Valerie, you were remarking on my lack of frustration. One reason to not get frustrated, there's so many reasons, but you know, faith that you're going to make more things and that some of them will turn out is one reason, one very basic reason. But another reason is that if something goes awry, then I just kick into my troubleshooting mode. You know, if I put it aside for a little break and then come back with a fresh cup of tea and look at it, are there actually opportunities in it that I didn't realize when I first was disappointed? And B, if there aren't, if it's just a sad little thing, then troubleshooting in terms of how can I make it better? How can I fix it? How can I redo it? How can I whatever, right? Whatever that looks like. So see what's happening here is there are chunks missing. So this doesn't always work by a long shot, but because it's watercolor paper, I'm going to try, where's my brush? There it is. Brushing a little more Purell on here. And just burnishing it again in those places. It's still going to look broken. It's still not going to look like it was perfect. But, you know, if I can get more of that image on there, that's good. And now I'm going to peel off the other end and see what that's like. That also, I'm going to do some attempted repair work. And see what happens. It's definitely going to be a distressed looking transfer, but I'm going to not be distressed about it, because if it doesn't work out, then I can, in any number of ways, work into it, work over it, cover parts, you know, there's so many things I can do with it, right? It's a mixed media book. So I don't need to be precious about it. Okay, so some of that repair worked, and some of that repair worked. And there's another little repair that needs to happen.
Let some of it does not work.
Well, don't worry, it's plenty distressed. It's not like I'm making perfection here.
Irene says, coming out beautifully.
Just another little patch in there. So I'll peel back this. Whoops, flopped it back. Try not to do that. There we go. Okay, so I got, you can see there's not tons of residue, but there are all these little chunks. Those chunks, if my image was full of lots and lots of fine details, would look terrible, because it would look like I'd ruined the image. Because it's a bold, high contrast image, you can see from this distance, it actually looks quite interesting, right? Now, when I bring it closer up, you'll get to see the detail of the flaws. But you know, it's so interesting how looking at something through a lens, literally the webcam lens, and seeing it on screen like this helps you see more objectively. Great. It actually looks fine. It's distressed, it's got texture, and it's totally fine.
Yeah, Val says perfectly imperfect.
Yeah, exactly. So now I need to let this dry, and that will stabilize the surface.
Irene has a question.
What's your question, Irene?
What other images will Purell work with? Magazines?
No, Purell is the alcohol content, the isopropyl rubbing alcohol content of Purell is the solvent for the emulsion, the specially made emulsion that's been applied to this film. This is transfer film specifically for transfer processes. I have probably one of the courses I will bring online, since we'll probably be in for this some version of isolation for a while. Will be an image transfer course, and there are so many methods of image transfers. And one of them is this film-based transfer, but there are actually variations on it. There is also a medium, special transfer medium that you can use with this, and it allows you to transfer onto non-absorbent surfaces. So paper is absorbent, obviously, but plastic isn't. Glass isn't. Wood is absorbent, but only a little bit. So leather. So there's that whole category of transfers. But then there are gel plate transfers, which I've taught a couple of times now and have been developing ideas around. And that's a lot of fun too, because gel plates are fun. I think there's a question, so I'll stop talking.
Elaine asks, could you just use rubbing alcohol?
The problem with rubbing alcohol is that it evaporates. And so you need the gel, because you actually need to let it sit and transfer, first dissolve the emulsion and then transfer it from the film to the paper. Rubbing alcohol would be gone way too quickly.
Karen says, but I have a lot of supplies. Don't make me buy it.
Now, which supplies are you not wanting to buy? Be more specific. There. So as this dries, it gets more matte. And one of the things that's nice about it, this kind of transfer, every transfer process has a whole different set of characteristics. This one, the transfer has a nice embedded in the paper look, almost. There's just a hint of it sitting on the surface because of the emulsion, but it is literally partially in the fibers of the paper, and that's what gives it that nicely embedded look.
Karen says emulsion paper.
The emulsion on the transfer film. That's what made that transfer possible. It's not just normal acetate with no coating on it. It's not just any random coating. It's a coating that's specifically meant to transfer an image off of it using the alcohol content of the Purell as the solvent. So I think that's going to be kind of nice.
Winnie Larson says, Kim,
Oh,
this
hi,
was
Winnie.
fun. I now want to try one of these transfers. Thank you and see you later.
See you later, Winnie. Thanks so much for being here. Glad to know you were here. I'm glad some of you found this. It was so disappointing that the original feed, why did this one work and the one I tried to do originally didn't work? I don't know. Questions I can't answer. But I hope you had a good time. And I've fulfilled my promise to do an image transfer, so there we go. So I think that brings this virtual studio party to an end.
You might want to make a point, tell people that the next time this happens, you're gonna to check your page on YouTube.
Yes. Yes. I'm gonna ask a couple of things. One is next time you come to a virtual studio party, if anything goes awry and the live stream ends, please just go to my YouTube channel and watch to see when a new live stream pops up. Because if my live stream comes to an end prematurely, then that's what I'll do. And then the other thing is, if you can please let anyone who might enjoy these know about these, because it's free and you don't need any special technology. As long as you've got a browser and high-speed internet, you can do this. And I think the more the merrier. It can be part. I've made it regular weekly things so that it can be part of your weekly routine. Just like Cal's virtual collage parties, which are on Mondays. So anyway, I hope that helps and that you have a great week. And I might see some of you at Cal's collage party or collage jam, pardon me, which is on Zoom. So contact him if you want to attend that. It's also free, but he has to email you the link. Okay.
Lots of people are happy.
That's nice. That's nice. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Irene. Thank you, Val. Oh, and thank you, Valerie. We have two Valeries. Oh. Yes, thank you, Cal. I really appreciate Cal too. So thanks, Karen. Hope you had fun getting out your stuff. So have a great week and take good care of yourselves. And remember to breathe and keep creative. And we're doing our best to make sure you have opportunities to keep creative. We're not the only ones, but I'm glad that you've chosen to come and spend time with us. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Don't close it. Just
okay.
Stop it. Because I'm gonna tell people I'm gonna leave the chat open if they want to get any of the links.
Okay, I will